Hello dear students, I Amol Handore, Assistant Professor at Department of Zoology. Welcome you to another lecture of Animal Ecology. Today we are going to discuss in this fourth lecture Terrestrial Ecosystem. Let's take a brief recap of previous lecture. In previous lecture we studied what is marine and estuarine ecosystem, what are its characteristics, and what are the biotic and abiotic factors of marine and estuarine ecosystem. The study objective for today's lectures are Introduction to the Terrestrial Ecosystem, Biotic and Abiotic Factors of Terrestrial Ecosystem, Types of Forest Ecosystem, and Biotic and Abiotic Factors of a particular forest ecosystem. So if we see, we have seen that all the ecosystems are classified into natural and artificial type of ecosystem. Natural, which means which is present naturally, and the artificial, which are created by human beings. So we have seen some example of artificial like cropland, that is agriculture, wetland. These are the ponds and lakes are the example of artificial ecosystem. On other hand, we have natural ecosystem comprising of terrestrial and aquatic. We have already studied all these aquatic ecosystem. Now we are starting with the terrestrial ecosystem. So in this today we are going to discuss the first ecosystem, that is forest ecosystem. But before going into forest ecosystem, we will understand what is the basic meaning of terrestrial ecosystem. So terrestrial ecosystem is a land-based community which is present on the land. So all the organisms which are present on land and which are interacting with the biotic and abiotic components of a given area forms the terrestrial ecosystem. Now the example of this terrestrial ecosystem include tundra, taiga, and different type of forest like temperate, deciduous forest, tropical rainforest, grasslands, and deserts. So let's see some of the important characteristics of terrestrial ecosystem. So here you will find variety of different organisms which are naturally present, and they are quite different from the aquatic habitats. And this terrestrial animal and plant have various mechanisms by which they conserve the water. On land, basically there is a scarcity of water, so all organisms try to conserve the water. Okay, now we will see the abiotic components of a terrestrial ecosystem. So the first major component is soil, because soil is required for all life supporting components like the plants. It is composed of minerals and other nutrients, as well as it has various amount of organic substances, air and water. Now the topsoil of this ecosystem is very important for terrestrial organism, and the fertility of this soil determines the type of vegetation. That means which type of plant will grow in this ecosystem is decided by the type of soil, or basically fertility of that particular soil. Second important component for living organism is the water. So this is the second abiotic component, because body of all organism is composed of 60 to 70% of water, and without water life is not possible on land. Usually terrestrial organisms have different mechanism of excretion by which they conserve the water. In dry and arid regions, organisms are adapted for conservation of water. So like in desert areas, you have organisms which can conserve the water in a best possible way. Now the third important abiotic factor is temperature. We know that on land temperature varies greatly, not only from one place to another, but also in the various season. We have different season and in which temperature changes, and each species is evolved with certain adaptation for living in certain ecosystem. Now, different gases are also the abiotic components. So, oxygen and carbon dioxide are very much important because oxygen is required for the respiration of living organism and carbon dioxide is required for the photosynthesis process. So, by which producers, that is plants, produce their food material in the form of glucose. Now, the last but very important component, abiotic component, is light, because only when sunlight is present, the producers, that is the plants, which are also called as autotrophs, they can do the photosynthesis and they can prepare their food material. And if producers are present, only then the other consumers can survive. Now we move to the biotic components. So we know that the first important biotic component is producers. So all the photosynthetic organisms, it includes plants as well as photosynthetic bacteria. But on terrestrial ecosystem, the flowering plants are the most dominant producers, and they provide the initial source of the food for the subsequent members in the food chain. In the next lecture, we are going to study this food chain. So each organism is dependent on the another organism for its food, and that forms what is called as a food chain. But the important food is produced by producer on which other organism can survive. Then come the consumers. So these consumers, they feed onto the producers or the plants, and these can be of various types like primary consumers, secondary, tertiary, as well as quaternary consumers, and they belong to different invertebrate as well as vertebrate phylum. And last important component of terrestrial ecosystem are the decomposers, which are in the form of bacteria and fungi, which break down the organic compounds of the dead organisms and they give the energy and nutrients back to the system. Okay, now we start with the today's topic of discussion, that is forest ecosystem. Now this system is a very complex ecosystem and it is dominated by the plant communities like flowering plant, trees, shrubs, herbs, different type of climbers, lichens, algae, and wild variety of animals. Usually these forests have the abundance of sunlight, rainfall, so that is very important for the development of such forest ecosystem. And on the basis of the climatic condition, we know that on the world overall there are different climatic conditions, so different types of forests are produced in different parts of the world. So major type of forest are tropical rainforest, savanna forest, temperate forest, taiga forest. So let's have an overview of a forest ecosystem. So there are three major types of forest which are found in the world according to the latitude. So what are these three important types? Tropical forest, temperate forest, and the boreal forest, which are also called as taiga forest. So let's study each one by one. So the first type of forest is tropical rainforest. These tropical rainforests are located along the equator. So you must be familiar with this terminology, equator and poles. So these forests, tropical rainforests, are basically located along the equator. So they are present in the Congo River basin of Africa as well as in Central America. Now the name itself gives the characteristic of this forest, that is they have very high annual rainfall which ranges from 140 centimeter and above, and also they have very high humidity level, so the moisture content of the air is very high, as well as annual temperature also exceeds 18 degrees Celsius. So these forests are also characterized by warm and humid climate, broad-leaved uh, as well as tall plants, abundance of insect and other invertebrates, as well as there is a very rich diversity of tree species. So in this picture we can see a typical tropical rainforest which have very uh, huge trees, and it is dominated by a variety of living organisms. Now this in this picture you can see, or the world map you can see the position of tropical rainforest as well as the temperate rainforest. So these green areas are the tropical rainforest. So even we have, and the temperate rainforest are shown by this pink color. And very sad reality is that more than one half of the tropical forest have already been destroyed by human beings. So for our own benefit, we have cut down this very important ecosystem, that is tropical rainforest. Now the second type of tropical forest is called as tropical savanna forest. So let's see one picture. So this is a typical savanna forest. So this is basically a grassland type of a forest where you hardly find large trees, but it is having grasses and the shrubs. So such forests are very abundant in the Africa, Southeast Asia, Australia, and some parts of India as well. Now the basic characters of these forests are the annual rainfall is very high. So they have rainfall ranging between 100 centimeter to 150 centimeter. They have dry and wet season alternatively. So the summer and you have the monsoon. The warm climate is present in the dry season, and variety of living organisms are seen in these particular ecosystem. So it includes elephant, zebra, giraffe, gazelles, antelopes. These are types of deers, kangaroos, and even termite mounds where you find the termites are very common in this savanna type of grasslands. Third type of the forest is temperate forest. Now these type of forests are characterized by medium rainfall between 75 centimeter to 150 centimeter, and average temperature is not more than 20 degrees Celsius. Such forests are found in Asia, USA, and North Central Europe. And other important characteristics is they are characterized by abundance of insect and birds, tall trees which are basically deciduous trees. Then the wood is hard, and the common species of this ecosystem, that is plant species, followed by the animals like frog, lizard, rabbit, snake, deer, bears are the common animal of this temperate forest ecosystem. So this is a picture of a temperate forest ecosystem. Now the next type of forest is taiga or coniferous, or it is also called as a boreal forest. So this taiga forest, they are basically characterized by low temperature as well as presence of snow. So you have such plant species which can survive at low temperature and in the presence of snow. So these forests are basically found in the east and west part of the North Europe, North Asia, and North America, and the climate is very cold. Annual rainfall is low, that is hardly 10 centimeter to 35 centimeter, and temperature in goes as low as 6 degrees Celsius in winter and 20 degrees Celsius in summer. Now since the climate is very cold, so the plants are basically the type of coniferous type of plants. So these plants are basically used in the paper and pulp industry. Now if we see the common species of animals, or they include birds like owl, eagles, other migratory birds, and mammals like fox, rabbit, deer, squirrels, etc. So basically the smaller mammals are present, and vegetation is dominated by the plants which can survive in the cold condition like pine, cedar and large type of trees. So in this picture you can see this coniferous type of plant which have adaptations to survive in the low temperature or snowfall type of condition. Now the last type is temperate shrub forest. These are also called as Mediterranean shrub forest. So as the name suggests, shrub forest means have very small trees. So these are very short trees or bushes kind of a ecosystem. You have grasses and the bushes, but tall trees are absent. Such forests are found in South Africa, South Australia, in the Mediterranean region, Chile, and the coast of California, where the rainfall is low and temperature is in the middle range, that is moderate. Now if we see other climatic condition, the climate is dry and air is moist. The vegetation is belong to the broadleaf trees such as rubber and other plants, and other animals include reptiles, small mammals and some large mammals. So this is all about the temperate shrub forest. So this picture you can see a typical shrub forest. You have the shrubs and grasses, but the large growing major trees are absent in this temperate shrub ecosystem. So let's see different components of a forest ecosystem. So these forest ecosystem components are basically abiotic components and biotic components. And the biotic components are further divided into three types, that is producers, consumers and decomposers. Consumers can be further divided into primary consumer, secondary, tertiary and quaternary consumers. So let's study first the abiotic components of forest ecosystem. So this include inorganic and organic compounds which are present in air and soil as well as in the debris. And the biotic components include all the producers like trees, algae, grasses, shrubs and other kind of vegetation which are the producing their food, which are also called as autotrophs. So they can make their own food. Now there are primary consumers which are nothing but herbivores which can eat these food material produced by the producers. So this includes small and large herbivores like ants, spider, mouse, deer, giraffe, elephants, etc. So all the herbivores are included as a primary consumers. Now these are also eaten by the consumers which are called as secondary consumers. So secondary consumers include larger carnivore animals like birds, predatory birds, snakes, foxes. So these are the secondary consumers, and these are eaten by the tertiary consumers which are also called top carnivores like tigers, lions, etc. And final member of the biotic component is the obviously decomposers. So any organism dies, then it is broken down by the decomposers. So all the bacteria and fungi are involved in the decay of dead organic matter of autotrophs as well as these heterotrophs, which include primary, secondary and tertiary consumers. In this table there is a all abiotic and biotic factors are summarized. So the sun, soil, water, air are the important components of an forest ecosystem. Sun is responsible for providing light to photosynthesis. Soil provides mineral and nutrients for the growth of plants. Water is required for photosynthesis as well as for the growth of the plant, and air provides oxygen and carbon dioxide. Now CO2 is responsible for photosynthesis and oxygen is required for respiration of animals. Biotic factors include producers like plants, primary consumers called as herbivores, secondary consumers which are called as carnivores, and tertiary consumers which are top carnivores, followed by decomposers like bacteria and algae which break down the dead body of these producer as well as consumers, and the elements are given back to the soil. And in this table we can see the flora and fauna which we have already discussed. So with this we conclude today's lecture on terrestrial ecosystem. So let's be a part to keep the balance of our forest ecosystem. We should plant a tree every year, and not only plant but we should make sure that tree grows and it gives something to our next generation. So if we summarize today's lecture, we have understood what is meant by a terrestrial ecosystem, what are the biotic and abiotic components of a terrestrial ecosystem. Then we understood what is a forest ecosystem, what are the different types of forest ecosystem. So we understood temperate and tropical forest, then taiga forest or the boreal forest, and coniferous type of forest, finally the shrub forest. And we also understood what are the basic biotic and abiotic factors of a forest ecosystem. So with this we conclude today's lecture on terrestrial ecosystem. Thank you.